Good morning. This is Superintendent Ed Nisnik, and I would like to go over our reopening summary plan with you this morning. We've been on twice last week, and we'll be on again today. Thank you for submitting your questions. Really appreciate it. And as I mentioned before, the questions that we're receiving, hopefully we can get back to you within 24 hours. We try to do a one-day turnaround. If you have any follow-up questions, please send them in. Some of them are building specific, so we get those to those administrators or other personnel to address certain questions as it relates to them. So sometimes once the question comes in, we send it to that individual who would be more apt to answer that particular question because they're building specific. As I mentioned, I'm going to give an overview. The first thing I'm going to do is go over the reopening topics that were submitted in the plan. It's health and safety, facility management, transportation, child nutrition, digital equity and access, teaching and learning, social and emotional support, athletic and extracurricular activities, communication, and where we're headed with our next steps. First thing we want to focus on is health and safety. The cleanliness of all of our facilities will be at the forefront of what we do every day. We will provide a clean environment throughout our school, buildings, and on our buses. Daily reminders will include signage and verbal announcements. Hand washer and hand sanitizer. Students and staff will be reminded and encouraged to wash their hands often, specifically when enter the building, using restrooms before and after lunch. Hand sanitizers will be placed in all classrooms and common areas for use. And we've had hand sanitizers in our classrooms for a number of years. Social distancing, the district is making a concerted effort to ensure social distancing throughout our school buildings, and there'll be signage and, as I mentioned, reminders throughout the day. Masks must be worn by our students and staff when 6-foot social distancing cannot be met. Mask breaks will be allowed at lunch and classroom where social distancing can be maintained. Some of the things that I am going over and discussing this morning will answer some questions that have come in for the past couple of weeks. So some of your questions may be answered as I go through this, and then I'll answer the questions that were submitted. And hopefully, if you thought about that particular question, it'll be answered in the at the end of this presentation. Continuing with health and safety, training will take place for our staff and students. This will include videos for teachers and students to view. In addition, we will continue to provide information on our website. So please check out our website or our Facebook page with information in regards to school reopening. All students and staff will be provided with cloth masks. Each student will receive 2 washable cloth masks. I also had a question in regards to if students can have their own particular mask, and yes, if it meets the requirements of covering the face and the nose and is appropriate, then they would be able to do that also. We also have additional face masks available should individuals need them. Some of the training will include hand washing, effective use of face masks, how to put a face mask on, how to clean and sanitize surfaces, COVID-19 symptoms. Personal protective equipment, staff and students will be provided with PPE, such as masks. Accommodation for high-risk populations will be addressed on a case-by-case basis and may require a physician's note. Please contact your building administrator to address these specific situations in regards to your child. Daily screening at home, we would really appreciate parents to check out the symptoms of your child before they leave for school, whether you're bringing them yourselves or they're riding the school bus. Take your child's temperature at home. We will have a Parent Square app that we'll be rolling out this school year, so you'll be getting information on that in the coming weeks as we put that app into working. So you would submit your survey via Parent Square before child goes to school, or a paper copy if you had issues with connectivity. Some reminders in regards to not sending your child to school if they have a fever greater than 100 degrees, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle aches, body aches, headache, a new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. And screening at school. All students and visitors will have their temperature checked upon arrival at school. We will conduct daily COVID screening via a 4 or 5 questionnaire that we've submitted through Parent Square. Reminders for symptoms to be aware of if your child appears to be sick, as I mentioned, and as a secondary measure, we'll also have their temperatures taken at school. However, the first line of defense is checking temperatures before students leave from home. Some of the questions that you may become familiar with as you've experienced the last several months, whether it's verbal or if you had to fill out a questionnaire when you went to a particular place, these questions probably will look familiar to you. Screening questions: have you knowingly been in close or proximate contact over the last 14 days with anyone who has tested positive through a diagnostic test for COVID-19 or exhibited symptoms? Have you tested positive through a diagnostic test for COVID-19? Have you experienced any symptoms of COVID-19, including a temperature greater than 100 degrees in the last 14 days? Have you traveled internationally or from a state with a widespread community transmission of COVID-19 per the New York State advisory in the last 14 days? And do you have a temperature of 100 degrees or greater? On our website, there's information provided in regards to additional information in regards to COVID symptoms and steps and procedures. So that was posted on our website last Friday. So you can check out our website and get detailed information in regards to procedures and practices. What if someone has COVID-19 symptoms? Will report to the nurse's office for assessment. Parent guardian will be contacted, and symptomatic students will be sent home. What if someone at school tests positive? Department of Health will be called the school to notify us, and Department of Health will also direct the district on how to proceed. So we'll have a very close relationship with the Department of Health. And when can someone who tests positive come back? The district will follow the guidelines from the Department of Health. And again, I referenced the document that is on our website. I believe it's 12 pages that's posted there, so it's very well detailed. You can click on that and read the steps and procedures. The questions that I just read, so positive screen includes those questions that I just read. So in the bottom of this chart, those are the questions that I read on the previous slide. And so student screens positive. If you look at the left side, going down the left side of the chart, the student sees their provider. So the student sees his provider, the student tests positive for COVID-19. And when can that student return? The student may return following Department of Health guidelines, which may include the following: 10 days since symptoms first began. Student has been fever-free for 3 days without the use of fever-reducing medication. And it has been 3 days since the student's symptoms began, including cough and shortness of breath. The student sees the provider and the student tests negative for COVID-19 per MD note or testing. The student may return. Student has been fever-free for 24 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication, and provider note is given to the nurse. On the right side of the chart, a student who screens positive, looking at the 4 questions down below, the student does not see a provider. The student may return 10 days since symptoms began, and student has been fever-free for 3 days without the use of fever-reducing medication, and it has been 3 days since the student's symptoms began, including cough and shortness of breath. In regards to our facility and maintenance area, as mentioned, the district will be cleaning our buildings throughout the day and night. Detailed attention will be focused on high-touch frequency areas. Our filtration system meets the requirements for the airflow, and we will continue to monitor this every day. So the district has enhanced detailed cleaning schedule with special attention given to highly frequency touched areas such as door handles, railings, drinking coolers, hand washing faucets. In regards to our drinking fountains, pretty much we have all of the bottle filler stations. So if the drinking fountain is not a bottle filler station, then that drinking fountain would be closed. And I think we only have a couple of those in the district. And so all of those will be replaced with the bottle filler stations. Air filtration, the code required 10% outside air, which will be maintained and exceeded whenever possible. And plastic barriers, any use of plastic separators would comply with 2020 BCNY section 2606 in regards to what we use. Throughout the buildings, there will be signage and reminders for all to see. We will limit the number of visitors to all of our buildings. If you need to come in the building, prior arrangements will need to be made. We want a safe environment for all of our students and staff. Again, there'll be signs throughout the building and reminders, verbally, announcements, reminding individuals of the social distancing and safety measures in regards to washing hands. So that'll be a constant reminder for all who are in our buildings. And visitors, per CDC, all visitors will be required to complete a brief health questionnaire, which I shared with you earlier, and have their temperature taken prior to entering the building. In regards to transportation, it is extremely important that parents and guardians take their child's temperature before they come to school, whether you're driving them or they're riding a school bus. In regards to transportation, buses will be disinfected after each run. We need to limit the number of options for drop-offs this year. This will allow us to have a definitive idea about the number of students on a bus. Please note that we will not be able to make last-minute changes in the afternoon in regards to transportation. Temperature checks, health assurances at home. State guidelines indicate that the best practice is for all students to have their temperature taken prior to getting on a school bus or entering a school facility. So with your help, if your child is not feeling well, then they should stay home. And again, check for the symptoms and please have their temperature taken before bringing them to school or getting on the school bus. COVID-19 symptoms per guidance documents. If a student or staff member has unexplained symptoms, they must stay home from school. Buses, again, will be disinfected after each run with special attention to frequently touched areas. In limited drop-off locations, due to limited capacity on the buses, families will be limited to the number of drop-off locations this year, just so we know that we can have the number of students on the bus that would be appropriate. All students and staff must wear a mask at all times. This allows for the mandatory guidelines to be in place. The results of the survey show that many parents will be able to transport their child to school, and that was from the second survey. Masks due to state restrictions. All students and employees will be required to wear masks while on the school bus. In order to properly maintain social distancing, school buses will have a decreased capacity. Parents are asked to bring their child to and from school whenever possible, and I appreciate the responses that we've received from parents who are able to do so. And if your child, once again, is presenting with any unexplained symptoms, please keep them home. In regards to child nutrition, meals will be provided for our students. When students are scheduled to be in school, eligible free and reduced participants will receive the next day's meal to go home with them. Other students can purchase meals as usual. This is a little bit different from the springtime when any family member under the age of 18 was provided with a breakfast and lunch. And that has changed. So meals will be provided for both in-person and remote learners. Students will have access to meals. However, families that are not eligible for the federal free and reduced lunch program will be charged for meals as they were previously. The hybrid learners, families can choose to take the meal home from the cafeteria for the remote learning day. So when a student is here on Monday, he would be able to bring home his meal for Tuesday, those who receive free and reduced lunch, or those who may want to purchase a breakfast or lunch. Remote learners family choosing to join the meal program will pick up meals at the school where their child would attend. And any questions regarding meals, please contact our cafeteria manager. In regards to digital equity and access, having a strong internet connection has been an issue for some families, as we experienced in the spring. The district has purchased hotspots for those students who may need them. Parents will need to contact the school building where their child attends for detailed information. And so the order for the hotspots has been placed, and we're waiting for that. So if you were one of the families who responded that a hotspot would work for you, you would call your child's building and speak with that particular office, and they would inform you on the next step. From the information that we received, we believe that we could assist over 100 families in regards to a hotspot working for them for internet connectivity. So thank you very much for responding to that question in the survey, which was the second one, which we drilled down a little bit deeper in regards to internet and connectivity to see if you were afforded the opportunity to have a hotspot because of poor connection, then you would be able to get internet, and that would help out a great deal. Internet access and hotspots. To enable students with remote learning, the district will be purchasing hotspots, as I just mentioned. These hotspots will only be given to households with unreliable internet or limited data, and will only work with a school-provided device. No internet access for hybrid or remote students without consistent or reliable internet and live in an area where a hotspot will not work. The district will provide alternate means to ensure students have necessary instructional materials such as Chromebook storage and USB drive. So hopefully we will be able to help some of the families who had a difficult time with internet connectivity in the spring, and we think we can do that with the hotspots. And also as a reminder that all of our school buildings, you can also pick up internet access in our parking lots. The district will utilize a combination of strategies to support remote learning, off days and 100% remote virtual. Included but not limited to daily check-ins and posting in Google Classrooms, recorded instructional video with accompanying assignments, live video instruction, communication with students via email or phone calls. In the guidance documents, it states a program is provided that regularly has interaction between teachers and students regardless of the instructional mode. So there'll be some flexibility in regards to the delivery, in which I just mentioned some of those. Google Classroom, recorded instructional videos with live video instruction included in some instances, and accompanying assignments. So if your child comes to school on Monday and is in person and meets with a teacher, Tuesday may look like work that was given on Monday for students to work on. It could include videos, it could include a Google Classroom Meet, it could include communication via email with the teacher. And in regards to attendance, that would also take place in those interactions or the completion of work from one day to the next. The schedule will look like at this time students will be on an alternating daily schedule. This will allow for 6 feet social distancing in the classrooms. Group 1 with the last names of A through L would start September 8th and follow like an ACE day. And Group 2 with the last names of N through Z would begin September 9th and follow a BDF schedule. Our Career Tech educational students who attend the Howard G. Sackett Center in Glenfield will be attending the BOCES program 5 days a week. So our BOCES Career Tech educational students will be attending the BOCES program. This is our 11th and 12th graders who attend the BOCES in Glenfield. And students with disability schedules will vary based on program and services, and the special ed department has been in contact with those parents who have called or who have submitted questions. And again, if you haven't been reached yet, usually we try to do a 1 day turnaround, and we've been pretty much on top of that. So just please call the special ed department or send an email. In our survey also, some people had commented that they would like to see the students also have the opportunity to participate in their specials. So instruction, all students will receive instruction in the core content area, as well as an art, music, library, physical education, and their electives. In regards to the fine arts, the district realizes the importance of all instructional areas. We want to continue to offer all of our students as many opportunities as possible while at school. Social distancing will further be emphasized in this area of chorus, wind instruments, band, and physical education, as noted. Staying active is a very important part of our everyday life. Students will be afforded the opportunity to participate in activities where social distancing is followed, and our teachers have been working very diligently in coming up with activities for our students as we enter the new school year. Attendance on a student's remote day, it is expected that they will log into their Google Classroom. Attendance will be taken on a daily basis by logging into a classroom, completing assignment, or meeting with a teacher at a scheduled time, as I mentioned just a couple minutes ago. So there'll be more than one avenue in regards to how attendance can be tracked. In regards to grading, as school reopens in the fall, the district will move to a more traditional grading model. This will remain in effect even if the district is required to full remote learning for a period of time. So in the spring, as we are all in this whirlwind of change that was thrown at us, we had a grading system that was trying to be fair and lenient with students in this whirlwind that we were thrown into. And as we move forward, we would like to go back to where our grades are very similar to what they would normally have during a school year. And remote learning, a remote learning activity will occur, and this could include Google Meet, IXL, Nearpod, or ExactPath. And IXL is a learning website for pre-K-12. Nearpod is interactive lessons that motivate students to master concepts. And ExactPath is academic growth goals for K-12 students. It combines adaptive diagnostic assessments with individual learning pathways to promote growth for grades K-12 and math, reading, and language arts. This is what a schedule is going to look like in regards to the start of our school year. So September 8th, you can see our students A through L would attend, and M through Z would be remote, and then that would change every other day. Again, the teachers will let the students know when they come to school in regards to their remote day, what that will look like. And as I mentioned earlier, that'll be a combination. There'll be flexibility there where it could be Google Meets, it could be video recordings, it could be other research that students would be doing on their device. Social emotional support, it's very important as we come back to school and reconnect that we pay close attention to our social and emotional well-being. We haven't been together in a school setting in several months, and so we need to transition back into reconnecting with one another. This is one of our top priorities in the beginning of the school year and as we go throughout the school year. In addition to education and the safety and well-being of our students and staff, we will also be supporting student and staff mental health. Counseling, we know that this has been a very difficult time for our students. Please remember that you may contact your child's principal or counselor if your child is in need of counseling services. And making connections and reaching out, counselors will have surveys for our students and staff throughout the school year, and counselors will also continue to visit classrooms and meet with our students throughout the coming months. So again, it's very vitally important that we begin the school year and continue throughout the school year with a reconnection with each other, with teachers and students to students, because it's been very challenging and difficult for all of us, and we want to have that bond to have a successful school year, and we need the support of one another in order to do so. Athletic and extracurricular activities. At this time, we do not have a definitive answer about whether there will be sports in the fall. In regards to extracurricular activities, we would like to offer our students as many opportunities as possible, but it'll look a little bit different. We are thinking of some inventive ways whereby students can come together even if they virtually connect with one another. So again, that human element, the social and emotional piece, in providing the students with the opportunities to continue the reconnection, although maybe not totally in person, but virtually. So we hope that that would also help our students. In regards to athletics, per state guidance, at this point they're not permitted. Interscholastic sports have been delayed until September 21st. Additional information will be provided when it becomes available. Many of you whose children participate in sports are familiar with Family ID and signing up, so please look for information in regards to that in the next few days. You'll be receiving some information on that. In regards to sports, I mean, we need to move forward. I don't know if sports are really going to become a reality September 21st. I guess that will be determined. But we have to anticipate as if we are moving forward with that. So you will be receiving information in regards to sign up and regards to Family ID. And Family ID may be new for some other parents, but those of you who've had children in sports know how to use Family ID. So you just follow through the steps of that, and that's the system we're moving forward with in regards to other forms that the district normally sends out. So we're hoping to actually mainstream things to make things a little bit easier in regards to Family ID. In regards to extracurricular activities, as I mentioned, presently we're looking at ways to provide these opportunities for our students. They need to stay connected and engaged in their various interests as it relates to their school organizations. So we really want to make that become a reality because we want to keep those connections and have somewhat of a school year that would be more on track to what they would normally do. Although it'll look a little bit different and the schedules will be a little bit different, we want to try to provide those opportunities for our students because we think it is very important. In regards to communication, again, we'll continue with our school messenger robocalls. Usually you're hearing me at 5:30 in the morning when we have snow days with that. But we also have other messages that we send out to you. Parent Square, a new communication app rolling out this year for ACS families. So that is, as I speak, in the process of being put together. So we hope in the next couple weeks that we will hear more about Parent Square and the communication between home and school that you will find very beneficial. So we're hoping that you can take advantage of that. Our ACS website, which you'll find a lot of information, so please continue to check that out. Social media, Facebook and Twitter, and email address specifically for reopening questions at acsreopening@adirondackcsd.org. And we've had that up for over a couple weeks. So thank you for the questions that you've been submitting, the support, the encouragement that you have been sharing. We're in this together. We want best for our students and your children. And so we're trying to get as many questions answered as possible for all of you, as we will continue to do so in the coming weeks. So again, you can continue to send questions to the ACS reopening at adirondackcsd.org and share that information with us and let us know what questions you have. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we will get back with you with responses, and please feel free to send in those questions. And like I said, we'll send them to a particular building or individual if that particular question warrants itself to do so. So next steps, parents, expect a letter arriving soon that will indicate more information about your children's anticipated fall schedule and group. This will be building specific, so our principals will be sending out letters to our parents. So some of your questions will continue to be answered in those letters and welcome back letters. Families will need to make their choice in regards to hybrid model, remote or homeschool in August. That is today, so if you haven't submitted your option, please do so today. At the bottom of that commitment form, there was also a place where you could click to say when you submitted it, you'd get a receipt back, kinda, and say that it was sent in. So if you've submitted it, we'll have that information, and we'll compile that information and get it together in the next few days. So please, if you haven't already done so, do that. Parent Square, I just mentioned. I think it'll be a great way for communication between home and school, and there could be a little frustration with once we learn something new and trying to get it to work. So please be patient as we roll that out, but in the end, I think once we use it and get familiar with it, you'll find that it'll be very beneficial and useful. Our community forums that we had and sending in our questions. All school reopening plans are subject to change per the Department of Health, Center for Disease Control, and the New York State Education Department and the state. So, there could be some changes, as you know, in the last days, weeks, and months that, new information comes out. We will provide you with any information that we receive and updates that we receive in regards to the reopening of school. So that's what we'll be doing in the next couple weeks. So thank you very much for those who have submitted questions. I'm going to go through questions and answers, and hopefully some of those will answer some of the ones that you may have had or thought about or didn't think about. And some may have been answered already in the overview that I just presented. So I'll try to go through questions and see if some of these answer yours. While the teacher is teaching the A through L students, will the students M through Z students be at home during the same class time watching the class and doing the classwork along with the rest of the students? As I mentioned earlier, there'll be flexibility there where in some cases that will be true, where that could happen. In other cases, students may be working on something different. So those students who come on Monday could be given an assignment to do for the teacher on Tuesday, and then the Tuesday group is working on something. So that flexibility will be given by the teachers. And like I said earlier, that could be a variety of modes of instructional strategies, including Google Classroom, live stream, videos, and recordings. So that information will be come from the teachers, and that schedule will be from the teachers. If my child goes every other day and we decide that we don't want him to go to school, can we change it to homeschool? Any parent that is interested in homeschool, the paperwork is at the district office and needs to be filled out, or you can call the district office in regards to homeschooling. So that information is available here. Homeschool paperwork needs to be filled out with paperwork that's at the district office. Also in regards to transportation, some of you have said that you are willing to transport your children to and from school. If there's a specific requirement, please contact the transportation department. For example, a parent mentioned that they would be able to bring their children to school except on Mondays, so that would have to be relayed to the transportation department. And again, thank you for all those who responded and said that you were able to transport your children. And again, that is on the survey for today too, just so we have an idea in regards to bus stops and students who will be riding the bus. So as we put all this information together, it's important in regards to those students attending school and those students who will be riding a bus, and those of you who will be transporting your students. So we have to get all that information together and finalize it this week. Will my children be able to come back to school when we feel it's safe for them to do so? Yes, communication needs to take place between home and school. As I mentioned earlier, the commitment form today gauges us in regards to those students who will be coming back. There is a positive case of COVID with someone at the school. Will parents be notified that someone tested positive? Also, are you requiring kids' teachers to be tested for COVID? We will follow the guidelines of the Department of Health. We've posted, as I mentioned, that detailed information of process and procedures on the district webpage, so please check that out. As far as communication, we work closely with the Department of Health, and they will guide us in everything that we need to do, and it's laid out on the webpage under COVID information. And we do not, are you requiring kids and teachers to be tested for COVID? We do not require that. I was wondering if you could discuss lunchtime in gym. Will the kids eat in their classroom? And will gym class be less group style activity? Students will either eat in the cafeteria or a gymnasium. They'll be socially distanced or have physical barriers that have been purchased. For aerobic activity, the students need to be 12 feet apart. And as I mentioned earlier, the physical education department, as well as the other departments and teachers, have been working very diligently in coming up with ideas and plans for their particular areas. So again, some parents in the survey previously had said, they wanted their children to be able to really get kind of like the whole experience of coming to school by also enjoying some of their specials. And so at this point in time, students will have that opportunity to engage in those activities. Again, will the staff and kids need to be tested before going, and will they need to be tested on a regular basis? There's no testing requirement for the reopening plan as regards to here at the school. Will the kids that stay home be able to do video with their class like they are there and go to their specials with their class? Students with remote learning will have a variety of ways they will engage in learning, as I mentioned previously, one of which could be videos within the classroom. Will the middle school, will the kids go on video calls with their class like they were with their schedule? So for secondary, obviously each student has their schedule. So if a teacher was doing a live stream, then they would go into, let's say, their second period ELA class, and so that's when they would go. So there would be some form of a schedule if the teacher is doing a live stream for those students who are at home. But again, that information will come from the teacher when that happens. But yes, they would follow their schedule and participate when the teacher gives them direction to do so. So again, they won't be all over the place here. They'd follow their schedule, because I know in the spring there wasn't a definitive schedule in regards to when students would meet online, and so by the students following a particular schedule, their schedule, that is when they could make the connections to the classroom. In addition to that, the teachers may also set up some other times to meet with students as far as through emails or other connections through Google Meets. When will we be notified about our student's teacher? You'll be notified, classroom teachers, once we get all the information in the next few days in regards to the last survey, our commitment form. We'll provide that information. So the school buildings are working on that right now as we speak. Is it possible for a child who attends BOCES to do all of their other classes for senior year virtually? Again, the CTE, Career Tech Education Program, at the BOCES, those students will be attending 5 days a week. That, again, is our 11th and 12th graders who attend the program in Glenfield. And if they choose to do remote, that is an option for them. While attendance is mandatory on virtual days, how does that work for first grader who are in daycare facilities with both parents who are working? Again, we'll have a variety of ways that will take place, including Google Meets, including students that are completing their work. A parent could also call in to the school, the nurse, and say that their child is not participating that particular day because they are sick. So that is another way that we would know if the students are participating in class. So there'll be a variety of ways to make that connection with attendance. When will we find out your child's teacher again? That'll be coming out within the next week. administrators are working on that as we speak. How long are you expecting to have the hybrid learning for our district? That'll be dependent on guidance from the CDC, the Department of Health, State Ed Department. We would like to see a phased-in approach for our students as we move into the school year. I know it is very difficult for our primary students to do anything that's virtual and keep their attention span, particularly K-3. So we are looking at a phased-in approach in regards to students coming back to school. We would like to bring our students back safely and have them here with us. In regards to how long the hybrid model will last, it'll depend on guidance, it depends on space, it depends on staffing. But we would first look at our primary grades and bringing those students back. And so we are continuously working on ways in how the transition and phase-in approach will happen. We hope to provide you with more information soon. The reopening plan, say high school, middle school must follow the same protocols. With such a large difference, how can it be expected that elementary students have the same understanding as a high schooler? Will the protocol be slightly different for our younger kids? Age appropriateness will be taken into consideration, especially when talking about virtual learning opportunities for our younger students. So yes, there has to be some of that taken into consideration for our younger students, absolutely, because like I just mentioned, it's very difficult, I believe, for K-1-2, especially with the remote learning for those students. So that's why it'll look a little bit different depending on the grade, depending on the content, depending on the teacher in regards to delivery of instruction. There has to be flexibility. What are the rules of dropping off and picking up if you can't enter the school? Again, each building principal will be sending home information in a welcome back letter in regards to procedures that will be taking place. So that will be building specific, and that information will be coming to you through the principal. In regards to pre-K, a lot of pre-K is interaction and socialization with their peers. Pre-K teachers will work with students and parents in regards to a plan to meet expectations. I think that happened in the spring. Many people became very inventive in delivery of instruction and make those connections, whether it was trying to get people to watch videos that teachers made or reading books. So they will continue to work on that. It's very difficult, obviously, with socialization when you're not physically in the building, but through other avenues that can happen, through the Google, through videos. So we think that some of that can happen, and I know that students very much appreciated seeing their teachers in the various videos that were created. In regards to cubbies, will elementary children be sharing cubbies? The students would use a cubby one day and another student the next day. Will be very limited basis in regards to the use of cubbies and lockers. We're supposed to limit the use, but I think in some instances they may have to put some things away, but it will be on a limited basis. When can our elementary children pick up their Chromebooks? We're working on a date for that. The remote learners, I believe, will be September 3rd. The students who will be back with us on September 8th will have their Chromebooks at that time, and September 9th, that particular week, will receive their Chromebooks also. Again, that information will be followed up with the letter that's going home from the principals. Okay, what will the distant learning days look like as far as meetings and class times a certain time? I know that in the spring, grading was very generous since this was all foreign to everyone, but what will expectation be for distance learning? We will, again, provide a variety of modes of that delivery of instruction, and we will look at the more traditional grading method, I think, that we have in the past. So that is what the plan is for the beginning of the school year. As I mentioned earlier, the students would have a schedule of when they would be learning or meeting through Google Meet or video. So that will be provided by the teachers. So yes, more of a set schedule, as I mentioned earlier, than we had in the spring. So I think that should help. I also had mentioned before in a previous question from last week that I think is appropriate at this time is, we realize that parents work and children and our babysitters. So again, there has to be flexibility in the delivery of instruction and when students can watch it, because maybe they can't watch something at 9 o'clock in the morning. So they're going to have to be afforded the opportunity to do it later. And so that's where some of the recordings would come into play. And students will not be penalized because they didn't watch it at 9 o'clock because there was something else that was going on in regards to at the babysitters or somewhere else. So I don't think we can just rigidly say that this is when it is and this is when you have to be there, because it's not fair to students. So that will be taken into consideration. I think that's a very important point. If there is a child who will not wear their mask at school, will there be disciplinary actions for this child? Will parents be contacted? What will happen in that situation? Students need to follow the protocols and procedures for wearing masks, unless they have some medical excuse from a physician saying that they can't physically wear a mask, then they're expected to wear a mask, and the code of conduct would be put in place. And for those who don't abide by that, then they would probably need to choose an alternate means of instruction. So yes, students will need to wear masks as required. I mean, the guidelines are clear in regards to wearing a face mask. If you cannot maintain social distance, then a mask must be worn. Masks must also always be worn on a school bus, in the hallways, in the bathrooms. So yes, students will be required to wear a mask, but then there will be mask breaks when they do not have to, when they're receiving instruction or can maintain a 6 feet social distance. So I think that's very important. So students will wear a mask. Also, a question previously that I think connects with this right now from last week in regards to face shields. Someone asked if a face shield could be worn because they see when they're out and about, maybe somebody wearing a face shield instead of a face mask. And the answer to that is no, a face shield does not take the place of a face mask. So first and foremost, a face mask must be worn. A face shield does not take the place of a face mask. So face mask must be worn. The shield does not take its place. Again, I touched upon wearing a face mask. Level of support. What level of support will be provided to teachers for classes? Students can connect with their teachers via email, via their Google Classroom. So there definitely will be connections between home and school. And as I mentioned earlier, as we were thrown into this in the spring, it was a new learning mode of education for all involved in trying to deliver that instruction, although challenging, even with those who didn't have reliable internet, and try to make those connections with those students was very difficult. And we tried to get that out as best as we could to our families and make those connections. And again, we truly appreciate all of you who participated in connecting. And sometimes I heard that sometimes the teachers call too much or not enough, and so as we experience that, we're working on making it a much better learning experience for all. and improve, because we don't know what the future holds, and we need to be prepared for whatever the coming months are in regards to our modes of education. PE is on the schedule. Is it being conducted in school or is it virtual? PE will be in school. The physical education teachers are working on ways to have their classes and their students participate in those classes. So I know I heard a lot of feedback from the spring in regards to some virtual activities that happened with physical education, and some of the inventive ways that those teachers were making connections with their students at home. So that was very good. If a student chooses hybrid instruction, will there be a Zoom classes held on the days that they are not in school? Again, that will be that'll be flexible, as I mentioned a couple times today, in regards to delivery of instruction, and that direction and directive will come from the teachers in regards to those students who attend Monday. What does Tuesday look like? Again, that'll be flexible, and some of the reasons for that flexibility is because of other commitments at home that is no fault of the students, such as at a babysitter's where there may not be connectivity, and parents might have to work with students later in the day. So again, there has to be flexibility in what we are doing. I don't think it could just be just one way and think that it's going to work for all students, because it's not. So there has to be flexibility, because there's various needs at home in what people are doing, so we need to pay special attention to that. If a student is a remote learner, do they maintain class placement eligibility for scholarships, National Honor Society? So that would stay intact. So if you're the remote learner or you come to school, that doesn't change, as long as the work is being completed and there's connection between home and school and the work is being done. Because like I said, there's a variety of ways that those instructional modes of delivery will happen. How will remote learners complete science labs? Will this affect the Regents lab requirements? Science teacher will work with students on the requirements and what they do. It'll look a little bit different, but science teachers will be working with their students in person and remotely to make sure that they've met the requirements that they need in order to be successful, should there be exams this year, which we don't know. Will remote learners be able to participate in extracurricular activities, clubs, sports, and be able to attend school events? Again, they're still Adirondack Central School District student, so they will be able to attend events. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm hoping that we can have some sort of extracurricular connections with our students, because I think it's very important that they make that. And as I alluded to earlier, it'll definitely help on the social and emotional well-being of our staff and our students. Will the library be available for remote learners? Well, in the secondary complex in the high school, it'll be on probably a limited basis because of renovations that are taking place there. And our younger students, they will have that opportunity, but the books that will be taken out when they return, they'll be set aside before the next students would take them out. So it may look a little bit different in the high school just because of the library being displaced right now. But I think once that is completed, we'll have an awesome library media center in the high school. Will there be remote office hours for remote students to meet with teachers? That would be worked out with the teacher and the student in regards to availability. So that information will come directly from our teachers. Will there be text service available to students and parents if needed? We are looking up at setting some connection with helping and assisting and some tutorials. So that will also be on our website. So please check that out. In regards to a student in 11th grade who's going to BOCES, students will attend daily, as I mentioned earlier, at the BOCES Center for our Career Tech Education students. So more specific information in regards to BOCES, if you have, contact the high school guidance office or main office in regards to specifics. I did have a question in regards to, if are they being transported to the Career Tech Center in Glenfield? The answer to that is yes. So that was one of the other questions that was mentioned here. Students will be provided that transportation to BOCES. But again, as I mentioned earlier, some of the questions that come in that are more specific to a building or department or area, we funnel those questions to that area. So in regards to BOCES, please reach out to the high school office and the guidance office. Again, another BOCES question: how are the BOCES children going to school every day? Career Tech Education students, transportation will be provided, so they'll be on the bus. Will the students be logging in for classes with live streaming, or there be pre-recorded lessons? I mentioned that earlier, so there'll be a combination of both. Will the school day follow the child's normal school schedule? Yes, that will be very similar to that. So as I mentioned earlier, secondary has a schedule, and period by period, and elementary as well. So it would be very similar to what their daily schedule would be if it's going to be live streamed. That information will come from the individual teacher. In regards to specials, was wondering what the stance is on the types of classes and how they'll be held. So as I mentioned on the slides, art, music, physical education, we will include those in our schedules. So the students will have the opportunity to participate in those classes. So as I mentioned earlier, I think it's vitally important that our students receive as much as their normal scheduled day as they can in regards to their classes and their specials. How will living environment labs specifically, it could be science labs, be completed if the student is virtually learning? Science labs, science teachers will work with students to fulfill the lab requirements, as I just mentioned previously. This will include hands-on and virtual labs. How will students participate in family and consumer science if they are virtually learning? Teachers would have the students work on a particular project. I know they worked on this in regards to technology last year in those classes, and students working on a project at home. It worked out very well, so that directive and information will be provided by the classroom teacher. But I know in that example, when you look at technology, which is very hands-on, and if you're not at school, what does that look like at home? It's building something at home. It's working on a project at home. Not only does it give the students the skills of doing what they would probably typically do in school, building something, but it also helps mom and dad out because maybe they're building something at home that would be very useful for you, and I think that's just a lifelong lesson. So the teachers will work with the students in regards to those classes of technology and family consumer science, looking at recipes or a sewing project and things of that nature in regards to family and consumer science. If a child has allergies, how will that work if they are sent home with a sniffle? As I mentioned last week, I think it's worth repeating because this question has come up in regards to students who may have some medical issues or concerns, or who have something that's typical every year. Someone has allergies, and they know every year that, certain time of year they have the allergy. So the nurses know our students, so they would do an assessment of our students and contact parents in regards to that. So I would say that with their good judgment, they will assess the student, and they know the student, they know the history of the student, so they will look at it by case individual and then make a determination. But our nurses do an awesome job, and they know our students and they know your children. So I believe that that will be looked at case by case, because we know that students have some certain preconditioned symptoms such as allergies or asthma, and so our nurses will be on top of that and make that communication between home and school. Will there be nasal COVID testing? The answer to that is no. We do not do testing at school. My children will be dropped off at school in the morning. I'm wondering if they will need a note to walk home. Yes, once you give the note to the office in regards to what your preference is, then that would be acceptable. So if you want your children to walk home from school, they live in the village, then you just write in the note, and that is put on file. So unless you change it again, that's the way that would work. Will the school be providing face masks for the students? Yes, as I mentioned earlier, students will be receiving 2 washable cloth masks. Again, if they had their own mask, if it covers their nose and face and fits appropriately, is school appropriate, then it also is allowed. But we will be providing them. Also, if they forget it, they lose it, we will have masks here available, so that is not a concern. Every classroom, every bus will have extra masks, so we will have that on hand. You won't have to go searching for one or asking that, for one. It will be right here available for children. Are the pre-K students doing the hybrid plan as well? Or are they going every day? Yes. At this point, pre-K will be doing the hybrid model like the other, all the other grade levels. So that is true. In regards to lunchtime in the cafeteria and social distancing, we have purchased physical barriers. You see the separators for our students in the cafeterias, so we'll also have those. And as I mentioned earlier, students would be eating lunch either in the cafeteria and or they'll also be eating in gymnasium, so practice social distancing whenever it can't be accomplished by a physical barrier. So the physical barrier is those polycarbonate dividers, see-through. So many schools are using those. In regards to drop-off of your students at school, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's important the principals of each building will be sending that information out in regards to their particular location. So you'll be receiving that information in regards to drop-off and pickup. So from each individual building, what the procedure will be, because it could look a little bit different depending on the location and building of each school. Breakfast and lunch, will this be done in the classroom? As I mentioned, it'll be in the cafeteria and the gymnasium, and students can bring their lunch to school if they so choose. If remote learn only, will the class schedule be given on Monday for the whole week? The teachers will be working with the students on the assignments for that particular day and that particular week. So that will be generated by the teachers when the kids come back to school in regards to the schedule. What date can I pick up my Chromebook if my child is remote learning? And that will be posted. We'll get that message out, but it looks like it will be September 3rd. But again, we'll post that information in regards to the pickup of Chromebooks. That information will be out to you via social media. Again, I already alluded to, as I see a lot of questions are repeated, which is a good thing because people are thinking along the same lines. This one refers to the face mask and face shield, which I already alluded to. Guidance states that students must wear a mask if not or cannot maintain 6 feet social distancing, and face shields do not take the place of face mask. Next question in regards to symptoms and how a student will be sent home or not sent home because they have preconditioned health issues. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the nurses will do an assessment on that student because they know the students and they know their typical symptoms if they have allergies or asthma, so they would know that. The nurse will work with the individual families whose children have pre-existing medical conditions. The nurses, knowing the students, will make an assessment of the student and then make that determination and contact the parents. Will there be kindergarten school bus orientation? Yes, there will be. There will be pre-K and K orientation, and that will be coming out. I believe Boonville Elementary will be August 26th and 7th, and you can contact the main office and set that up. That will also go out on social media and our website as far as the pre-K orientation. So that'll be coming out probably today.
Yeah.
So a lot of the questions that we received, there was a common theme in regards to what was being asked. So again, I appreciate you sending and submitting the questions. You can continue to send the questions into ACS reopening at adirondackcsd.org. We're not taking that down. So if you have questions, you can continue to submit them to that website. Again, I thank you for submitting the questions, and thank you for your support as we go through this together. I know there's a lot of ways that we can really make this productive and reunite, and so we're looking for a successful school year. We hope that we can get back to some sort of normalcy in the coming weeks and months. Again, we'll look at ways that we can phase in our students into our school year as far as the question relating to how long the hybrid model, by following the guidelines and what we have to do in space and staffing. We'll continue to look at that. We are looking at it. It isn't something that we have closed the book on. We're always constantly looking and refining, and we will continue to do that in the coming days and weeks and get that information out to you. So again, thank you very much for being with me this morning. I appreciate it, and have a great afternoon.